Hey there, it's time to start using what you've learned to create your own mockup in Adobe XD. I'll go through steps to create a mockup for my library website homepage based on the wireframes I created early in the course. Here we go. First, I'll open Adobe XD and select the artboard that has the wireframe of the library website homepage on it. It's always a good idea to have the wireframes in front of you as you create mockups. Because my wireframes are all neatly lined up, I'm going to create a new artboard below the wireframe that I'll be using for reference, which is the homepage in this case. So I'll pop over to the toolbar and we'll pick the artboard tool and add a Web 1920 artboard directly below the homepage wireframe. This makes it a little easier to refer to the wireframe when I'm making the mock. Now I'll move this second artboard below the first one so it's easy for me to track the flow of my work. I personally prefer to work from the top of the page down, but you can design your pages in any order you like. So let's start with the navigation bar. I'll draw a rectangle for the background. I'll set the background color of the navigation bar to black by clicking the Fill option under Appearance in the Property Inspector. Next, I'll add the logo to the far left side of the navigation bar. Here's a quick pro tip. Adobe XD lets you add images really easily by creating a rectangle first and then dropping the image inside of it. For my mockup, I don't need to drop in an image though, as my logo is just simple text. I'm going to create a text box and type in WCL, which stands for Wisconsin County Library. Next, I'll change the font to Belly Display and make the size 48. Finally, I'll adjust the color to a mustard yellow using hex code E0D15C. Using hex codes instead of randomly picking a color allows me to make sure that I'm using the same color throughout my mockup. Okay, so I have the logo in the navigation bar. Let me keep building this part of the page out. I need to add more text into the nav bar for the links to other pages. Similar to my wireframes, I'll add text boxes for Search, Discover, Donate, and About to the left side of the nav bar next to the logo. Then I'll add text boxes for Account and Basket to the right side of the nav bar. Now I need to change the look and feel of all this text in the navigation bar. I'll click the text boxes while holding the Shift key until all 6 text boxes are selected. The good news is that the background color for these text boxes is already transparent, so I don't need to change that. But I do need to change a few other things using the Property Inspector here. I'll change the font to Avenir and I'll make the size 20. I also want this to be heavy to add a bit of emphasis. Finally, I'll change the color of this text to white so that it stands out against my black navigation bar. Next, I need to make sure that the text boxes are aligned and evenly spaced using the alignment tools in the Property Inspector. First, I'll select the text boxes by dragging a selection over them or using Shift and click. Then I'll align them all to horizontal center by clicking this button. I'll also put even spacing between all of these text boxes by clicking the horizontal distribute button. I'm going to be using the same font, color, and size throughout my mockup, so I want to save these preferences in the Assets panel, which is a collection of the elements and preferences you've created in your design. The Assets panel serves as your sticker sheet. This makes it really easy to share your elements and components with fellow designers. I recommend saving your preferences when you finish each stage of your design, or when you create new elements. This will make the design process faster and more consistent as you move forward. To open the Assets panel, I'll go to the bottom of the toolbar on the left side of the screen and click on this Libraries icon. A panel opens that allows me to either search libraries of assets I've imported or look at the assets for the design that I'm working on, which is called Document Assets. Right now, it's blank because I'm just starting my mockup. I'll start by saving some of the colors I use in the navigation bar. First, let me focus on the logo. Adobe XD makes it really easy. I'll select the text box of the logo and press the plus sign next to the word Colors in the Assets panel. And ta-da! Just like that, the mustard yellow color from my logo has been added to my preferences. Cool, right? I want to follow this same process to add the other colors I've used in my navigation bar too, like the black and white. There we go, simple as that. Now I can use these same colors throughout the rest of my mockup. Next, I want to save the character styles, which will allow me to easily use the same font, size, and color for additional text, This is great for creating consistent headings throughout your mockup. For example, I'll select the logo text. I'll click the plus icon in the character styles header, and that's it. I'll do the same thing for the links to the other pages of the library website. I don't need to save each one of these as they're all the same style. I only need to click one of them, like search, and click the plus sign again. Great. Now I have some preferences saved in my assets panel that I continue to use throughout my design. You may notice that there's one other part of the document assets panel, which is components. As a reminder, components are made up of elements. Common components are buttons, which include elements like text, color, and a shape. In this case, my component will be the navigation bar I just created. To create a component, I need to group items together. I'll select the navigation bar background plus all the text and the logo, and then hit Command and G on a Mac or Control and G on a PC. You can also right-click and pick Group if that's easier for you. That's it. Now these elements in my navigation bar are grouped together and form a component. I'll add this component to the Assets panel by clicking the plus sign next to the word Components. This will allow me to quickly reuse this exact same navigation bar on future artboards. In other words, I can easily include the same nav bar at the top of other pages of the website. All I have to do is click on this component and drag it onto the new artboard like this. One cool thing I want to show you, if I edit a master component, all instances of that component will change instantly across my mockup. For example, if I add a new link to the navigation bar, the nav bar on all pages will automatically be updated, which saves a ton of time. I'll right-click on the Assets panel and click on Edit Main Component. Now, the main version of the navigation bar component is selected. Let's say I make a change. Notice how this change is updated for all the navigation bars across artboards? Pretty sweet. Anyway, I'll undo this change for now, but I wanted to show you this cool tip. Woohoo! The navigation bar is ready to go. Now I'll move on to the next layer of the home page below the navigation bar, which includes a hero image of the featured author and accompanying text. First, I'll draw a rectangle. Then I'll open Finder on a Mac or Windows Explorer on a PC and find the image I want. And now, if I drag this onto the rectangle, the image will fill the rectangle. Bam! How neat is that? Okay, now I've included a hero image in my mockup, it's time to add some text to describe this image. I'll draw another rectangle to the right of the image where the text will go. I'll fill the rectangle with this dark purple color, which is hex code 382862. I'll also add the dark purple color to the Assets panel because I'm probably going to need to use it again. I'll go to Color on the Assets panel and click on the plus icon. Now let me show you another awesome feature in Adobe XD, stacks. Stacks allow you to move or resize an element from a stack, and the rest of the elements will automatically move to preserve the defined space in between elements. So let's check this out in action. I'll create 3 text boxes and stack them on top of one another. I'll type featured author into the top text box, a short headline into the middle, and some body text using lorem ipsum in the bottom text box. I'll select the 3 text boxes and group them together by pressing Ctrl or Command plus G. Then I'll name the group Featured Author in the Layers panel. Now I'll go to the Layout section in the middle of the Property Inspector. I need to check to make sure that Responsive Resize is on. I'll click the checkbox next to Stack and make sure the vertical stack button is selected. That's the icon with the arrow that points downwards. To the right of these icons is a number or a line, which represents the spacing between all the text boxes in the stack. If you see a number, that's because you have consistent spacing between all the items. If you see a line, it's because there are different spacing between the different text boxes. I want this to be consistent, so I'm going to set it to 24. If I want the spacing to be larger, I could type 34, for example, and the spacing automatically changes. This will help me save time as I design. But for now, I'll leave the spacing as 24. Alright, I've just finished designing everything above the fold on the library website homepage. Let's take a brief pause so you can open XD and start playing around with your own mockups. When you're ready, meet me in the next video, where I'll continue to design the rest of my mockup of the library website homepage. More pro tips to come. Welcome back. I'm going to keep building the mock-up of the library website homepage that I started in the last video. Now that the navigation bar and hero image section are set up, I can work on the sections of the homepage that are below the fold. So let's get to it. Since I'm working down the page from top to bottom, I'll focus on the layer below the hero image, which is the popular WCL layer. This layer contains 2 books, each with some supporting text to describe the book. I'll start by creating the elements for one book and its accompanying text. First, I'll create a rectangle and fill it with the same mustard yellow I saved earlier in the Assets panel. To keep this rectangle in place while I add other elements on top of it, I can right-click on the rectangle and select Lock. Now, even if I click on the rectangle and try to drag it, it won't move. First, I'll create a rectangle to represent the book cover. Up next, I'll add 3 text boxes for the book title, author, and book details. I'll add some placeholder text that says book title and author for the first 2 text boxes. For the third text box, the description, I need quite a bit of text, so I'll use lorem ipsum. Let me quickly copy and paste some lorem ipsum text from this website that I found through a quick Google search. Now I'll format the text size and apply color. I'll select all 3 boxes and change the fill color to black using the black color I saved earlier in my Assets panel. Next, I'll adjust the font size for each text using the Property Inspector. I'll choose font size 48 for the book title, 20 for the author, and 16 for the description. Remember what you learned about typographic hierarchy earlier in the certificate program with my colleague Kunal? Typographic hierarchy orders typefaces and fonts in a layout to create divisions that show users where to focus and how to find information. Most product interfaces have different sizes for text. A larger sized text that's used for titles, in this case the book's title, and a smaller sized text that's used for longer text passages, like the book's description. I've made the font size for the author's name in between these 2. Awesome! The first book is ready to go. I want to repeat this exact set of elements on the right side of the popular WCL layer. Luckily, Adobe XD has a really helpful feature called Repeat Grid that allows me to do this easily. Let me show you. To use the Repeat Grid feature, I first need to select all the elements I want to repeat. The easiest way to do this is to go into the Layers panel. To open the Layers panel, I go to the toolbar on the left and click on the Layers icon toward the bottom. Inside the Layers panel, there's a list of all the elements that I've created so far, as well as the groups of elements that I've made, like the navigation bar. Let me locate the rectangle and the 3 text boxes I just created for the book. Okay, here they are. Because text fields like the book title or the author name can get quite long, I want to make sure that those flow on the page properly. So to do that, I'm going to use stacks like we used in a previous lesson. So the first thing that I'm going to do is group the 3 text boxes together and turn them into a stack. I can do that by selecting the 3 text boxes and clicking the Stack button in the Properties panel. Now I'm going to select the top element, press the Shift key, and select the last element. Notice that everything in between is selected as well. Now that I have selected all the elements I want to repeat, I can go over to the Property Inspector on the right here and click on Repeat Grid. If I grab the green transform handle on the box and drag it to the right, the group of elements is duplicated. And you can use the feature vertically too. Adobe XD features like Repeat Grid save us designers a lot of time when making mockups. I'll use this feature in the next layer of the homepage too when I build out the feature collections. You may have noticed that the duplicated elements look identical to the original ones. One thing I really like about a Repeat Grid is that you can edit individual items inside of the Repeat Grid and it won't change the other elements. Let's take a peek. I'll pick one of the duplicated elements in the Repeat Grid by double-clicking on it. Let me edit this book name. There we go. While I'm at it, I've also already changed the font style to belly display. Now I'll drag in some images, like I did for the hero image. Here's an important tip. Repeat grids allow you to input multiple images at once. Knowing this, I set up the images in my file so that they were labeled 1 and 2. This labeling lets Adobe XD know the order that the images should go in. I'll select both of these images and drag and drop them onto one of the 2 image placeholder rectangles in my Repeat Grid. And just like that, they're both populated. This is such a great time saver and another benefit of designing in Adobe XD. Alright, that layer is coming together. I'm happy with that. Now it's time to work on the next section, featured collections. I'm definitely going to want to use the Repeat Grid feature here. Knowing this, I'll create some placeholder items for the first section that I can repeat. I'll use the text tool to draw a long text box for the collection title. I'll name it collection title for now, and I'll make its font belly display size 48. Below the collection title, I'll add a vertical rectangle to represent a book. Finally, I want to add the book name and author name below the book, so I'll create two text boxes stacked one above the other. I'll call the top one book name and the bottom one author name. I'll make these text boxes Avenir font size 14 with the book name in bold. Okay, now that I have all the elements I need, it's time for the fun stuff, repeat grid. I'll do this by opening the layers panel and selecting all the elements I want in the repeat grid. Then I'll move my mouse over to the property inspector on the right and click on repeat grid. Great, my repeat grid is ready. Now I'll grab the green transform handle on the box, just like I did last time, and drag it to the right until I have two more instances of this group of elements. Awesome. Now I want each book to be spaced a little bit closer to each other. To do this, I'm going to move my mouse to the white space between the first two books. Notice how the area turns pink as soon as my mouse is on top of it? This lets me know that I can edit the spacing. If I click on the side of the pink rectangle and drag it to the left, the amount of space between the first and second book decreases. At the same time, the repeat grid function automatically resizes the amount of space between the second and third books to match. That's pretty neat, right? Now I have my collections of books in this layer, but they're still really basic. I need to add some images and add in the book and author names. As I did earlier, I'm going to go to my image folder on my desktop and quickly grab 3 images I want to display here. I'll drag them into one of the empty rectangles. Bam! They're all in. I just love how easy this feature is. Not only is it easy to add images to repeat grids, it's also easy to add text from a file. Prepare to have your mind blown. I've pre-populated a text file with all of the book names I need to add to my mockup. The first book name is at the top of the list, and the last book name is at the bottom. Notice how each book is on its own line. This is really important, as each new line tells Adobe XD it's a new name. To get these names into Adobe XD, I'm going to drag the text file from the folder it's in and place it on top of one of the text boxes titled Book Name. And just like that, all of my books are populated on the screen. I'll now quickly repeat this process for the author names. How cool is that? Alright, another layer done. My mockup is really starting to take shape now. There's just one more left, the footer. I want the footer to match the top navigation bar, so I'm going to start by drawing one large rectangle and filling it with the color black. The first element I want to add to my footer is the larger library logo. To do this, I'm going to copy the logo from my top navigation bar and paste it down here. To the right of the logo, I'll add another text box where I'll type Wisconsin County Library. I'll put each word on its own line. I'll also quickly adjust the font type to Avenir Book and the size to 20. So now I have the text of my logo, but the actual 3 letters that I use for it are a little bit small compared to the text next to it. So I'm just going to make that logo text a little bit larger so it looks a bit better. At the moment, the 2 text boxes that make up my logo are separate. Whenever I want to use the larger logo, I'll want these elements to be grouped together. I'll do this by selecting the 2 text boxes and pressing Ctrl or Command plus G on my keyboard. Now my items are grouped together. To the right of the logo, I want to insert 6 library addresses in 2 rows. I'll mock this up quickly using the repeat grid feature. First, I'll add 2 text boxes and name them county and address. Then I'll form a repeat grid. Now I need to use both green transformer handles to turn this one group into 6 groups. Finally, I'll import a text file for the counties. I'm choosing not to do this for the addresses, as the automated feature does not work if the text I want to import is on multiple lines. This is great. I'm almost done. The last thing I need to add in the footer are icons for social media sites. I downloaded these in advance from each social media site and have them saved to my computer. One final step, let me make these icons mustard yellow to better match the rest of the page. Alright, my mock-up for the Wisconsin County Library website homepage is done. I still have additional artboards to create as I want to mock up the entire book reservation flow, so I'm just getting started. I hope you learned some great practical tips that you can apply to your own mocks as you work in Adobe XD. I can't wait to see what you come up with. Hello again. In the last video, I built a mock-up for the desktop version of the homepage of the Wisconsin County Library website. While you were working on mock-ups for your project, I did too. In addition to the homepage, I created additional artboards to mock up the entire book reservation flow. Check these out. Once I finished all the mock-ups for the desktop version of the website, I also designed the homepage mock for a smaller screen size, a mobile phone. I put it here below the desktop designs. You'll notice that the mock I created for the homepage follows a layout I decided on during the wireframe phase. I start out with my top navigation bar, including a hamburger menu and two icons for search and the checkout cart. I also included the WCL logo in the middle of the navigation bar. Then I have the hero image and accompanying text, followed by the popular at WCL section, the featured collections section, and finally the footer. As you get started on your own project and design versions of your website for mobile phones, I want to show you one trick, how to design a flyout menu. A flyout menu provides an overview of a website's hierarchy and helps users find information to navigate the site. A flyout menu gets its name because it flies out from the side of the screen when you hover your mouse over or click on an element. In the library website I'm designing, the flyout menu will appear when a user taps on the hamburger menu icon. To create a flyout menu in Adobe XD, I'll start by creating a new artboard that will hold my flyout menu. Because my flyout menu will either be the same size or smaller than my current screen, I'll add another phone-size artboard next to it. Next, I'll draw a rectangle for the background of the flyout menu. I'll fill this black from the Assets panel and remove the stroke. Then I want to add in a close button for the flyout. I'll draw this in the top left so that it appears over the top of the hamburger button. I'm going to make the close button out of two rectangles that I group together and rotate. To make the menu useful, I'm going to add links into the different areas of our website. In this case, Discover, Donate, About, and Account. I'll create these using a repeat grid and apply the heading
I have with me cut date.
Now all that's needed to complete the layout of my flyout menu is the library logo at the bottom. I'll copy this from the footer for now. And we're done. Later on, we'll wire this up so that it appears when you preview your prototype. You can use the same process to create a search bar pop-up as well. This way, when users click on the search bar icon in the navigation bar of the library website, a search bar will pop up that covers the width of the screen. Great! I have my ideas for the homepage of the mobile website fleshed out. Now, just like I did with the desktop version of my website, I need to create additional artboards to mock up the entire book reservation flow. I'll get to work on that while you get to work on your own designs. Have fun. Hello! It's time to learn how to create prototypes of our responsive website designs in Adobe XD. In particular, I'll focus on how to go from mockups to high-fidelity prototypes for the desktop version of the library website. In an earlier course, you learned that you could create a high-fidelity prototype following 5 steps. Lay out the mockups, connect the screens, add interaction details, adjust the animation, then complete for all the screens. When you went through this process in the last course, you were working in Figma, but now we're creating our designs in Adobe XD. So let's explore how to complete these steps and create a hi-fi prototype in this new tool. I'll start by clicking on Adobe XD and opening my mockup designs. Remember, to create a prototype, switch into prototype mode by clicking prototype in the menu in the upper left corner. First, I'll lay out my mockups in the order of the main user flow. In other words, I want my mockups to be in the order that users would move through the library website. This will make it easier to build the connections. Here we go. This should be right. Now that the artboards are in order, I can move on to step 2, connect the screens. At this point, I'll be thinking through the order of interaction for the user visiting the library website. The user journey I'm focused on is finding and reserving a book. Starting on the home page, the first action I want a user to take is to click the search link in the top navigation bar. So I'll click on the first element I want to connect, which is the text that says search. A blue arrow will appear. I'll click and drag this arrow to the second artboard that I laid out earlier, which has a big search bar across the top of the page. You'll notice that the artboard I dragged the arrow to will be highlighted in blue until I release the arrow. This helps me double check that I'm connecting the things that I want to connect. The next action I want a user to take on my website is to search for a book in the search bar. I'll need to connect the search button here to the search results artboard. You've already made connections between artboards when you made your low fidelity prototype earlier in the course, and I've shown you how to do a couple of them again here. So I'm going to quickly speed through connections to the rest of my user flow for the library website. One sec, I'll be right back. There we go. All of my connections are in place. It's time to move to step 3, which is add interaction details. In Adobe XD, you can decide the type of interaction you want for the transition between 2 elements, and we call these triggers. Triggers define what type of interaction will cause a prototype to advance forward. The first option is tap, which is the most common choice. This means a transition will happen when the user taps or clicks on the first element. Then there's drag. This means a transition will happen when the user drags or swipes across the screen in a set direction. Drag is often used for image carousels. The last 2 options, gamepad and voice, allow you to prototype more complex products. For this library website, I'll stick with the tap trigger because it's the closest to a simple click, and I'm designing for a desktop computer where clicking is common. And with that, I'm ready to move on to step 4, which is adjust the animation. For desktop websites, I don't need to add too many animations. Think of websites you visited recently from your desktop or laptop computer. Most of these pages have a simple transition to the next page on your click, so I can skip this for my desktop website designs. This means my high-fidelity prototype for the desktop version of my designs is complete. That was quick, but it's a bit more complicated to add interaction details and adjust these animations for the mobile version of your website designs. Let me show you how this would work for the mobile site. Here it is. First, I'm going to add a connection between the hamburger menu item on the homepage and the flyout menu artboard. And just so you don't get confused, Adobe XD uses dotted lines for connecting overlays. The solid lines are for the main connections. Now, let me add the interaction. I'm going to keep the trigger as tap because that's the most common interaction for mobile websites. For the actions, I want the type to be overlay, and I've set the animation to slide to the right. This tool sizes the image for me so it's easy to position it over the page. I've set this up in the overlay submenu. Now, let's test out the interaction. I'll click the preview button and click on the hamburger menu on the top of the page. So, this overlay only covers part of the page. I can click the large X to exit. Keep in mind, this overlay example is just one of many ways that you can change the interaction to achieve a responsive design. Now that one of my animations is looking good, I'm ready to repeat this process and complete it for all of the screens in the mobile version of the library website. I'll make connections, add interaction details, and adjust the animations for the rest of the artboards. And there we go. The prototype for the mobile version of the library website should be fully functioning. Let me show you how it works using the preview button. So here I have the preview of my narrow website. I can click on the search field, I can enter a book name, I can click search, and I get the search results page. From here, I can see the detail of a book, such as this Island of Dr. Moreau book, by clicking here. If I click the reserve button, it will tell me that the book is in my basket by changing the reserve button to yellow. At this point, I can see the items that I have in my basket by clicking this basket icon. If I scroll down in my basket, I can see all the books I've added to my basket and then confirm the reservations at the bottom. Clicking here will take me to the reservations confirm page where I can see when to pick up my books and a quick summary of what I've ordered from the library. At this point, it's very easy for me to get back home by clicking on the WCL logo at the top. That's a wrap. You now know how to create a high-fidelity prototype in Adobe XD. Now it's your turn to bring your own website designs to life. Get creative and don't be afraid to explore.
Welcome back. So far, you've learned some great strategies for adapting the UI and other visual elements to create responsive, high-fidelity web pages. Before you test your designs, you need to make sure that the website is accessible. In this video, we'll discuss some of the ways that UX designers can design web pages with accessibility in mind. The great news is that there are standards you can refer to called the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, or WCAG. The WCAG documents explain how to make web content more accessible to people with disabilities. Most of the standards are focused on how to incorporate text, sounds, and images in a way that supports more users. So let's explore 3 ways to make your web designs more accessible, based on WCAG standards. The first way is to make annotations. Annotations are markers placed next to interactive UI elements, like the call to action buttons on the page. Here's a screen of the Dog Walker app that was designed earlier in the certificate program. The screen now has annotations. The numbers in the green circles indicate to an engineer the linear focus order or traversal order that assistive technology, like a screen reader, moves through the form. Traversal order is the navigation flow for a user on an app or a website. The annotations also set the order in which a user would tab through the items on a website if they use a keyboard instead of a touchscreen or a mouse. A second way to make your web designs more accessible is with hierarchical headings. Earlier in the program, you learned about hierarchy, a visual design principle that orders elements on a page and highlights them by their importance. Headings are a great example of how hierarchy can help users navigate a web page by selecting from the screen reader menu options more easily. Headings are an effective way to scale the size of the text based on its importance on the page. Having specific heading tags allows screen readers to understand the hierarchy of the page. Different sized headings can be annotated with H1, H2, H3, and so on to further indicate the hierarchy. These annotations will support the engineer's implementation of headings in HTML. The third way to make your web designs more accessible is by using labels. Labels add descriptive language to the interactive UI elements on the web page. You should use labels to indicate the purpose of the control and any type or role of the control. For example, a floating action button in Gmail is labeled Compose, and the type of the control is a button. When annotating labels for interactive elements on your web page, you should note where similar controls should be grouped to provide more efficiency and context to the screen reader. For example, consider grouping a list of checkboxes so that a user of assistive technology could understand the relationship of the checkboxes and how to quickly navigate to and from them. It's important to include detailed annotations for the engineers who will be working on the implementation of the project once your designs are finalized. In this image, you'll notice that I included annotations for the engineers to provide the labels that the screen reader should read aloud for each button. Successfully applying labels is necessary to create inclusive web pages. That's all for now. Making the most of annotations, hierarchical headings, and labels in your designs can help make your web content more accessible for people with disabilities. Try applying these learnings to your own designs.
You're well on your way. So far in this course, you've been working hard to build mockups and high-fidelity prototypes in Adobe XD. Now we'll discuss how to prepare your design specifications for engineers. Then we'll pivot just a bit and return to your big picture goal, getting a job as a UX designer. You'll add a case study to your portfolio so that you can let your responsive website design project shine. Then we'll cover tips and tricks for scanning job postings. You'll be all set to browse UX design openings in the real world. Finally, you'll create a compelling resume that highlights your new UX skills. Let's dive right in. Hey there! You just finished your high-fidelity prototype of a responsive website. Congratulations! Now comes the part where you share your designs with others, one of the most important parts of your work. In the real world, that would mean handing off your designs to developers and engineers. Basically, you provide the mockups, prototypes, and specs, and the engineering team starts the coding process. Creating a functional, usable product depends on lots of moving pieces, roles, and talented individuals. Similar to the way UX researchers help UX designers learn what it takes to design a user-centered product, developers make the designs and features that UX designers have created functional. When it comes to websites, front-end and back-end developers are crucial in building the UX team's vision. They work together to produce an end product that's both functional and visually captivating. The role of front-end developers, commonly referred to as web developers, is to write code for all the user-facing interface based on UX designer specifications. Essentially, they help to create the functionality that users will be interacting with on an app or website. Meanwhile, back-end developers write code for the website's architecture and data storage or retrieval based on the UX sitemap and functionality. Users don't often see the work back-end developers do, but they play an essential role in making it all possible. For example, a fast-loading website is often the result of good back-end engineering. As a designer, you'll likely work with both front and back-end developers. These developers will be working with your final designs, but how do you determine when your designs are final? Here are a few things to ask yourself. Are the designs a true representation of the intended user experience? Have placeholder text, icons, and imagery been replaced with finalized assets? And are participants or users able to interact with and interpret the designs without external guidance? If your team can answer these questions with a resounding yes, then you've done it. You've finalized your designs, and it's time to hand off the designs to engineering for production. When you land a design role at a company, you'll work with front-end and back-end developers to fully realize ideas. Working collaboratively will be essential to your success. You'll be faced with various challenges depending on the methodology that's guiding the team, and there's no singular right way of doing things. It's all about what works best for the team, so communication is key. Next, we're going to explore the how-tos in handing off design specifications in Adobe XD. I'll meet you there. Welcome back. In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how UX designers can effectively hand off design specifications, or specs for short, in Adobe XD to developers. Adobe XD provides designers with a way to improve communication between themselves and developers by offering design spec sharing within the software. Before you send design specs to developers, you want to ensure your mockup or high-fidelity prototype is relatively complete. This means images, colors, sizes, and positions should display a cohesive flow between one artboard or screen to the next. Here are the library website designs I've been working on throughout this course. I created different artboards for the different sizes the website is likely to be, from a desktop computer to a mobile phone. I have all of the different wireframes I created for the home page, search bar, search page, cart page, and more. Beneath the wireframes are the mockups, complete with images, descriptions, and other visual elements that make the website seem more realistic. As we draw closer to the finish line, it's vital that designers provide a prototype that's as close to the final product as possible. Now I'm ready to share this prototype with the developers I'm working with. I want to send my teammates a link where they can access the Adobe XD file I've been working on and its design specs. If your document is not already published to the cloud, you'll need to do that now. I can do this quickly by going to the Assets panel and clicking the Upload icon in the top right corner. A window opens and there's a big blue button you can click to publish the file. Easy peasy. Navigate to the upper left corner and click the Share tab to open a panel on the right side of the screen. It reads Link Settings. In the first box, you can type in a name that clearly indicates to developers what you are sending. It's helpful to include the project name and version. I'll name it WCL version final. Under View Settings, you can choose the type of file you'd like to share with viewers. Design Review shares a document that allows you to receive feedback on your design or prototype. Development allows you to share it specifically with developers. Presentation optimizes your design in a presentation format, while user testing is an excellent format to test the design for flow. There's also a custom setting where you can modify the experience to your preference. In this case, since I want to share this with the team that's in charge of creating the front and back-end coding, I'll select Development. Choosing this option will populate additional settings. Now I'll choose between 3 supported platforms: Web, iOS, and Android. I can also customize the level of security on the document. Under Link Access, I can allow anyone with a link to access the document by selecting Anyone with the link. Or perhaps I only want those who are invited to view the prototype, in which case I'll select the Only Invited People option. If it's highly sensitive material, I may opt for Anyone with password access. In this case, I'd like any developer I share the link with to be able to access the prototype. I can click Create Link and that will populate a shareable URL. If you make any changes to those settings, make sure you click the Update Link button so it stays up to date for all project stakeholders involved. And that's how you create a shareable prototype to send to developers. Have at it. Second project to your portfolio. Good. I'm really rooting for you. We've reached the end, we're almost there.
Hi, Justine and Danielle here. We are sitting at the heart of where it all happens. We've just announced a number of orders. Over 300 aircraft have been designed yesterday and today. And we've announced the first immersive remote collaboration concept. Watch this space.
A350F livery contest as well as the aircraft livery.
That's amazing. Stay tuned.
See you tomorrow.
Annenberg Media.
C'est le livre là. Mon père et ma mère.
Listen, watch, and get involved. Pretty soon you will figure out what's going on and be able to say a few things in French yourself. More table talk about real estate and the ruined farmhouse the Bellows have fixed up as a country home. The doorbell rings, and Marie-Laure is sent...
Oui, assez. Mais nous ne louons pas. Propriété. Nous avons acheté l'appartement il y a une vingtaine d'années. Chaque copropriétaire paie sa part pour le chauffage, pour le traitement des gardiens.
Les loyers doivent être chers dans ce cas.
Jeudi soir, on est encore à table chez les Bellows.
Colette, vous reprendrez bien un peu de foie gras. Vous aimez ça? Colette n'a plus de pain. Marie-Laure, va chercher de pain, s'il te plaît.
Les loyers doivent être chers dans ce quartier.
Oui, assez. Mais nous ne louons pas. Nous sommes en copropriété. Nous avons acheté l'appartement il y a une vingtaine d'années. Chaque copropriétaire paie sa part pour le chauffage, pour le traitement des gardiens, l'entretien, les réparations, le nettoyage périodique de la façade. Mais au total, même avec toutes les charges, c'est plus économique que de louer.
Oui, bien sûr, la propriété, ça a ses avantages. Et ça devient infernal. Ma famille possédait autrefois un domaine en Vendée, un petit château en Touraine, un autre en Bourgogne, avec quelques vignes, un manoir en Bretagne, un pavillon de chasse en Sologne, un mas en Provence, un chalet dans les Alpes, une gentilhommière dans le Périgord et un cottage en Normandie. Mais maintenant, c'est devenu impossible. Avec les impôts. Et surtout, le manque de domestiques. Car enfin, il faut bien le dire, on n'est plus servi.
Comme vous avez raison, cher ami. Est-ce que vous voudriez bien me passer le sel, s'il vous plaît?
Nous n'avons pas de problème de domestique. Il faut dire que nous n'avons pas de grand domaine. Mais nous avons tout de même une petite maison à la campagne qui nous sert de résidence secondaire, près de Dreux. C'était une petite maison de paysans qui était en très mauvais état que nous avons achetée. Les portes ne fermaient pas, il n'y avait plus de vitres aux fenêtres. Nous avons fait toutes les réparations nous-mêmes. Il a fallu changer presque toutes les tuiles du toit, il a fallu tout repeindre, tout retapisser. On a fait les maçons, les menuisiers, les charpentiers, les plombiers, les peintres. Oui. Toute la famille a travaillé. Ça nous a pris 2 ans pour la rendre habitable. On a fait amener l'eau, mettre l'électricité, on a transformé la grange en garage.
Bon, ça, c'était pas le plus difficile. Il suffisait de laisser tomber un N et d'ajouter un A.
Oh, arrête. Arrête tes jeux de mots absurdes.
Qu'est-ce que c'est le jeu de mots absurde?
Grange, garage. Tu as grange, le mot grange, et tu veux faire garage. Tu enlèves un N et tu ajoutes un A. Tu vois?
Non.
Va chercher ton Scrabble, je vais te montrer.
Marie-Laure se lève. Madame Bello